I'm Robert Cardoza, and you're watching On the Street, the intersection of business and politics. This segment is new legislation. Got some really exciting, interesting things you're going to say, wow, I didn't realize that. Let's talk about sequestration first. You know, March the 1st, it became law. The president signed it off, and everybody's worried about that $85 billion in reduction that has to take place. You know, you got to wonder why they're so worried about it. What's going on with the sequestration? You know, we know that about 7.9% of cuts are going to take place with military, non-uniformed. We know that 5.3% are going to take place with all the other entitlements and non-military things that are going on. And it's not as drastic as you think, but you got to say, how could we let this happen? We knew so far in advance, you know. The GOP said, oh, we're never going to go to sequestration. The president says, oh, we're never going to go to sequestration. And the Senate says, we're never going to go to sequestration. And the next thing you know, it's just like the fiscal cliff and everything else. Boom, we're in sequestration. You got to say to yourself, what the heck's the matter with these guys? What are we paying them for? They're doing nothing. Matter of fact, it was interesting, just 5 days before we fell into the sequestration, what did Congress do? They went on vacation. What else would they? What would you do if you were facing something like this? And you've got to say to yourself, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? I'll tell you what I think is going on. I think it was all pre-planned from the very beginning. It's the blame game all over again. You know, the GOP wants to blame the Dems. The Democrats want to blame the GOP. Both of them want to blame the president. Well, the truth is, I think it was all planned to start with. Think about it. How many times have you heard the term Simpson-Bowles, right? The Simpson-Bowles Committee. And they were going to put together a plan and did a comprehensive plan on how to get a handle on the deficit and the national debt. Well, they did, and they presented all that stuff. And do you remember this formula? 3 to 1. For every $1 in additional revenue, there would be $3 in cuts of spending. Well, think about this. With this $85 billion in sequestration that's got to take place this year, you know, that gets us within about $75 billion of that 3 to 1 ratio, which is very, very close. It seems to me that perhaps what's really going on is that they meant to do the Simpson-Bowles from the very beginning, but doing the blame game, nobody wanted to get blamed for it. So what they did is they came up with a way to say, hey, not my fault. We fell off this cliff. We went into sequestration. We didn't want it to happen so the Republicans don't get blamed for it. The Democrats don't get blamed for it. The president doesn't get blamed for it. And we get it because Simpson-Bowles was really tough to swallow, a bitter pill to swallow. And I think that's exactly what happened here. Now, I'll tell you what's really scary about sequestration is that it's not the $85 billion. That in and of itself is really not a big deal if you think about what's happening. What the problem is that the fiscal year for the United States ends on September the 30th, which is just 6 months from now. So it's not $85 billion over a 12-month period or a year. It's $85 billion over 6 months. And they knew this was going to happen. They should have started making cuts before, but they waited, and now they've got to do the entire year's worth of cuts in a half a year. And that's what's scary. The other scary part is they just arbitrarily said, we're cutting $85 billion, and they didn't sit down and say, well, we can cut here, we can cut there. Let me give you an example. We don't need $30,000 toilet seats, and we don't need $15,000 wrenches. There's a lot of waste that's going on in there. And think about this too. They're worried about the deficit. The deficit is $1.1 trillion a year. Well, we are going to pull our troops out of Afghanistan starting in 2014. But 2014 isn't a year away. 2014 for the United States starts on October the 1st of this year. And so when they do that, the war in Afghanistan costs us $1.1 trillion a year. All of the problems and all the things going on are going to come right out of those funds as far as the military is concerned. Not going to be as big a deal as you think. You know, I saw this morning that the unemployment rate went down to 7.7%. We went down 2 more tenths of a percent, and we gained, what was it, 32 or 252,000 jobs. And you're saying, well, sequestration is going to cost us jobs. Well, you know what? It's not going to cost you as many jobs as you may think. And it's going to cost some. There's no way to get around it, but not as many as you think it's going to cost you because it's already built into the program. Now, the one thing that will happen is that when they bring these troops home, they're all going to be looking for their jobs, right? Well, think about it. We got, what, somewhere around 160,000 men and women in Afghanistan. If we gained 250,000 jobs a month, this is not going to take place over 1 month. We can easily handle this hit. So unemployment is not going to be so bad. Think about what's going on in the stock market today. Why on earth, with sequestration being so horrible, would the stock market be at all-time historical highs? I'll tell you why. Because what's going on in Washington, D.C. is considered by business to be the appropriate thing to do. What do you do when business is bad? You make cuts. What do? You try to get increases in revenue. That's exactly what's going on in Washington, D.C. today. So as far as the business is concerned, that's a good thing. And so they're starting to get more and more confidence. Now, are they spending money that they're sitting back in reserves? No, not yet. They're not all that confident in Congress. You know, they've got their head stuck in the sand over there. But basically, what's going to wind up happening is they're going to get more and more confidence, and you're going to see everything growing. Housing starts are up. Manufacturing is up. The stock market is up. Banks are pretty solid again. Interest rates are being held down by the Federal Reserve. Things are really looking good. Now, we're not getting that 5 or 6% inflation that we were hoping for the growth in the United States. We're about 2.3%, but that's still not bad. We're heading in the right direction. All the doom and gloom that you're hearing is all manufactured so you keep your mouth shut. It's all manufactured to scare you. It's all manufactured so that you're expecting this bitter pill. And when you went to the fiscal cliff and you went to sequestration, and we're going to go now to another spending bill coming up, and we're going to go then to the new budget, it's all built around getting you ready to take these pills just a little chip at a time so that you're ready for these kind of things. That's exactly what's going on. It's not as bad as you think, and it's not going to be as bad as you think. Nobody's going to let the United States, still the superpower in the world, go haywire. The other thing is, don't worry about Korea, because the President of the United States says, hey, we can certainly defend ourselves against North Korea. It probably just won't exist anymore. Now, coming up, we're going to have an interview with Gil Savage. Gil Savage is the director of the American Association of Community Theaters. You don't want to miss that. You're watching On the Street, the intersection of business and politics. I'm Robert Cardoza.